pouvoir communiquer. En l'occurrence, là, nous allons discuter avec deux responsables de Facebook sur l'Afrique, Akua, Gyekye et Balkissa Siddo, qui vont nous parler de la protection de l'intégrité des élections africaines. Alors, je pense qu'on va pouvoir lancer un live dans quelques instants. Alors, on avait eu l'occasion pendant Digital Africa Live, qui sont des webinars en live sur la plateforme Zoom également, sur des thématiques extrêmement précises, de parler des élections et de parler de la protection des datas. Il a été mentionné que, voilà, ils arrivent. Très bien. Bonjour. Good afternoon.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you so much.
Balkissa, I think I will let you drive the innovation session, right? Yeah. So over to you, Balkissa.
OK. Merci beaucoup, Jean-Noël. Mesdames et messieurs, chers invités et chers participants, tout protocole observé, nous vous souhaitons l'Aqua et vraiment la bienvenue à cette session d'innovation qui est organisée par Facebook en collaboration avec e-conférence. C'est un plaisir pour nous, l'équipe de Facebook, de pouvoir être avec vous cet après-midi. C'est vrai que nous aurons aimé être là physiquement, mais étant donné le contexte de pandémie actuelle que nous traversons, nous n'avons pas pu faire les déplacements. Néanmoins, c'est vraiment un honneur pour nous d'être avec vous et de pouvoir nous entretenir avec vous sur une thématique qui est d'actualité durant ce semestre et dans la région Afrique francophone. Il s'agit notamment de la thématique qui porte sur comment protéger l'intégrité des élections en Afrique francophone. Donc, avant de poursuivre, je vais me présenter. Donc, moi, c'est Balkissa Siddo et je suis responsable des politiques publiques à Facebook pour l'Afrique francophone. Je vais laisser ma collègue également s'introduire. Akua, you can introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Balkissa. My name is Akua Gyekye, and I lead our election integrity work at Facebook across Sub-Saharan Africa. And as Balkissa introduced, and I was able to understand with my very bad French, we'll be providing you with an overview of how we protect elections across the Francophone Africa region. We want to have a presentation, or we have a presentation to share. And afterwards, we wanted to leave a bit of time for questions. I will also do my best to speak slowly, seeing that I understand translations are being made available. Thank you.
Thank you, Akua. Donc, nous allons vous faire une présentation. Peut-être que certains d'entre vous se posent la question, pourquoi une session d'innovation, on parle d'élections? Parce que tout simplement, nous allons pendant ces minutes que nous allons passer ensemble vous parler de comment Facebook innove pour pouvoir protéger l'intégrité des élections dans la région Afrique francophone sur ces plateformes. Donc, nous allons faire une présentation sous format PowerPoint pendant environ 30 minutes. Puis, nous allons passer la parole à l'auditoire pour toute question que vous aurez à nous poser. Je ne sais pas comment ça va se passer. Est-ce qu'on peut commencer la présentation?
Oui, allez-y.
Donc, je vais partager mon écran. Je pense que l'hôte doit me permettre de partager.
Ça arrive.
Merci.
C'est bon.
Voilà, je pense
que on voit.
Nous y sommes maintenant. Donnez-moi juste une minute. Et voilà. Donc, comme je le disais tantôt, la présentation que nous allons faire porte sur l'intégrité des élections sur la plateforme Facebook et en Afrique francophone. Mais avant, je suggère que nous parlons d'abord des innovations dans le contexte de la COVID-19. Je suis certaine, et j'ai pu suivre les sessions qui se sont déroulées ce matin, à plusieurs reprises, on a eu à parler de comment l'accès au numérique, le digital, a été accéléré par la pandémie que nous traversons en ce moment. Donc, nous allons nous attarder quelques minutes sur ces aspects-là. Donner à tous la possibilité de créer une communauté et de rapprocher le monde, c'est l'objectif, c'est la mission que Facebook se donne. Cependant, dans le cadre de cette mission-là, de l'atteinte de cette mission, nous sommes confrontés à un défi, celui de créer des outils qui permettent aux gens, aux utilisateurs, de se faire à la fois entendre et également qui permet aux utilisateurs de créer des communautés de manière qui soit sécurisée et qui soit intègre et authentique. Étant donné notre mission qui est de donner à tous la possibilité de créer des communautés et de rapprocher le monde, notre plateforme est vraiment une plateforme qui avait toute la place pendant cette pandémie-là pour pouvoir en fait rapprocher les gens. Donc rapprocher d'un côté les populations et aussi les autorités sanitaires en leur permettant de communiquer. Donc en réponse à la pandémie de coronavirus, Facebook a soutenu et continue de soutenir les initiatives de la communauté internationale de la santé publique pour protéger et informer le public. Donc, depuis que l'OMS a annoncé et a déclaré que la COVID-19 est une urgence sanitaire de portée internationale en janvier donc, de cette année, nous, à Facebook, avons pris des mesures pour garantir l'accès des informations exactes, fiables, afin de limiter la désinformation et la diffusion de contenus nuisibles et soutenir les experts de la santé à l'échelle internationale, les gouvernements, les entreprises et les communautés locales. Donc, je voudrais mettre en avant les 3 initiatives suivantes que nous avons eu à mettre en place, notamment le Centre d'information sur le coronavirus. C'est celui que vous voyez là. Donc, aujourd'hui, si vous allez sur votre téléphone ou sur votre ordinateur, vous pouvez avoir accès à ce centre d'information-là qui, en fait, permet d'obtenir les dernières nouvelles, les dernières informations, ainsi que des ressources et des conseils pour rester en bonne santé et soutenir vos familles et vos communautés. Donc, ce centre-là comprend des mises à jour en temps réel des autorités nationales de santé, des organisations mondiales de santé telles que l'OMS par exemple, ou le Centre des maladies infectieuses de l'Afrique. Et il y a également des astuces qui sont données là-bas et qui viennent de ces autorités-là pour pouvoir se protéger de ce virus. Et les utilisateurs peuvent également suivre le centre d'information sur le coronavirus pour recevoir des mises à jour des autorités sanitaires directement sur leur fil d'actualité. Donc, depuis le 16 avril, pour donner quelques statistiques, nous avons orienté plus de 2 milliards de personnes vers des ressources provenant d'autorités sanitaires telles que l'OMS et les ministères de la Santé. Et plus de 350 millions de personnes ont cliqué sur ces ressources-là pour obtenir plus d'informations. Donc, cela vous montre comment l'impact en fait que les outils que nous avons mis à la disposition des utilisateurs a permis à plusieurs de pouvoir s'informer sur la pandémie et également les mesures de précaution à prendre. Nous avons également travaillé avec la Fondation des Nations Unies, l'OMS, pour démarrer un fonds de solidarité pour la riposte à la COVID-19 auquel tout le monde peut faire un don actuellement, tout le monde peut contribuer. Et toutes les contributions qui sont faites, Facebook double en fait ces dons-là dans la limite de 10 millions de dollars. Donc, en plus de cela, nous avons créé un programme de subvention de 100 millions de dollars pour aider les petites entreprises dans le monde qui sont touchées par la COVID-19 parce que je suis sûre que vous le savez, cette pandémie a impacté l'économie mondiale, pas juste en Afrique, et les petites et moyennes entreprises ont été celles qui ont le plus été impactées. Donc, nous avons apporté une subvention financière, mais nous avons également mis à la disposition des PME des outils de travail qui leur permet en fait de rapidement basculer au digital et de pouvoir s'adapter à ce contexte-là pour survivre. Donc, à cet investissement s'ajoutent des engagements que nous avons déjà pris envers le secteur de l'information pour lutter notamment contre les effets de la pandémie. Donc, nous avons eu à donner des subventions pour soutenir les médias locaux, mais aussi pour soutenir les organisations de vérification d'informations qu'on appelle communément les fact-checkers. Donc, nous avons aussi, entre autres, mis en place soutenu en fait les ministères de la Santé pour mettre en place des chatbots pour leur permettre de communiquer de l'information sur la COVID-19 aux populations et tant d'autres innovations que nous avons eu à mettre en place pour vraiment venir en appui aux populations, mais aussi aux autorités sanitaires pour pouvoir faire face à cette pandémie-là. Donc là, je projette juste d'autres apports que nous avons eu à faire. Et je vous invite, si vous êtes intéressé, à visiter notre site, notamment si vous allez sur l'Internet et que vous mettez Facebook, coronavirus, soutien, vous pouvez avoir plus d'informations. Donc, sans plus tarder, je suis sûre que vous voulez en savoir plus sur la thématique de la protection de l'intégrité des élections sur Facebook. Je vais passer la main à ma collègue Akua. Akua, over to you.
Thank you so much, Balkissa. I'm going to spend a little time now to talk about our approach when we think about election integrity at Facebook. Elections have changed, and so has Facebook. At the company, we know that we have an important responsibility when it comes to helping people participate in elections and to ensure a safe, secure, and free set of elections can take place. We've been involved in more than 200 elections around the world since 2017. And as a consequence, we've hired over 35,000 people who now focus their work on security and safety. That's almost 3 times as many people as there were in 2017. We also have various teams that work on election security and safety issues. In my role, I have the privilege to work with all these teams, from policy, like my colleague Balkissa, to product, market, threat intel colleagues all around the world, as well as people who have market expertise that understand both the language and the context within elections take place on a daily basis. The idea is really that we want to make sure that we learn from the lessons of previous elections when we engage, and every time we work on elections, we get smarter on how to do this work. Next slide. One more, please. So when we think about the work in elections, our work is really focused on 3 strategic objectives. Number 1, we want to prevent election interference. That can be both local in terms of domestic interference as well as foreign. We also want to remove harmful content and reduce misinformation. One of the key risks that I've seen in doing this work here at Facebook, I've been here about 5 years, is really how we've changed our response to tackling misinformation in partnership with others. And we want to continue to improve the work that we do there. I'll speak more about that shortly. And last but not least, we really want to focus on and have focused on increasing transparency. We want to give people more information about what they see online and how they can engage with the content that they come across. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also think about our work in 4 different pillars. The pillars that you see here really are the way that we think about when we approach any election, including the ones in Francophone Africa. Number 1, we really look at expert investigatory teams that have a background in sort of following up rumors, doing investigations, that allows to bring an unprecedented level of transparency and knowledge to the work that we do. Secondly, we think about automated disruption at scale. You might recall back in the day, you know, you found a fake account and you had to report it to us, which we still very much like you to do. But we got the feedback as a company. It's a bit of a difficult process. New fake accounts appear, you once again report them. So we really build up our automated systems to be able to take fake accounts down at scale. And now in 2019 alone, we took down over 6.5 billion fake accounts via our automated systems and machine learning before any of us even engage with such accounts. The third area or pillar that we think about is increasing transparency. We want people to come to Facebook and talk about things that are important to them. Civic topics as well as election-related debates are very much important to people, but we want people to be aware of who they're talking to, who is behind the messages. So we've worked on tools and we continue to roll them out globally to ensure that there's increased transparency about who is online and how are they engaging. And last but not least, we cannot do this work alone. Our work really depends on strong partnerships with both government, civil society partners, but also academics, sometimes even law enforcement if it's relevant and so requested. So the reality is we really work with as many people as possible to really make sure that we not only understand the risks in an election, but we can also mitigate them. Next slide. One more, please. Nowadays, when we talk about preventing interference, there are really three ways at which one can think about it. We recently updated our inauthentic behavior policy to clarify how do we act when it comes to potential interference. The really important thing here for you is that we can intervene on an actor level, on a behavior level, on a content level. Here at Facebook, we recognize that it's most useful to focus on the behavior. So if there's inauthentic behavior going on, that's really where our systems can best target. And that is added with human review and real people who give additional context as to are people acting in an inauthentic, coordinated way, which is what we don't allow on our platform. Next slide. It is worth putting it into context though. So for a moment, allow me to step back. This is sort of the idea of the type of content, social activity that is taking place on our platform. Next slide. Oh, no, sorry, there's a slide missing. The point of the previous slide was that when you zoom in to that bigger social activity, you will know that there's only a tiny portion at the top that focuses on violations. And then of that tiny amount, if you click on it again, you will see that info operations really is just a tiny part of that. The idea really is to just put things into perspective when we talk about creating or tackling coordinated and authentic behavior. I think oftentimes people get the impression that that's what's taking place only on social media these days, because we also share a lot of information about it when we come across it. However, it's important to take it into perspective and think about it more broadly. Next slide now, please. In regards to information operations, we have done a lot of work in the last couple of years. And the team that is now focused on that has taken down numerous information operations around the world. What is important to note there is that a lot of them you might have heard about have also taken place in Sub-Saharan Africa, where countries, sometimes in Francophone Africa, were targeted as well. And because they were targeted in these information operations, we wanted to ensure that they would be protected, especially before an election. The reality is that you see more of these campaigns coming down doesn't mean that more of these activities have been taking place. It's just that we've become better and better at detecting this type of behavior, and are able to sort of anticipate some of these things happening, as well as take down not only individual accounts, but fan out and take down related accounts if they are misbehaving or doing any kind of illegal activity. Next slide. What I quickly wanted to say here is that when it comes to detecting and removing bad actors, we really focus on a few things. We focus on making sure that we can detect such behavior, any type of harmful behavior, that we take action very quickly when we found it and take down various accounts which are related to it, and we adapt. We try to stay ahead a step to make sure that the lessons learned can be applied for the next election. Next slide. And as I mentioned previously, a big part of our work is also focused on taking down fake accounts. Why fake accounts? We have learned that fake accounts are the source of a lot of the bad content that is taking place on Facebook. So we've trained our machine learning tools to make sure that they can very quickly not only identify, but also remove these fake accounts. As I mentioned before, we also though complement that with real humans like you and me, who allow us to also make sure that these accounts come down as well as stay down. Next slide. What I quickly wanted to mention here as well, because I know it's a topic oftentimes of concern to many people when they think about their upcoming elections, is what do we do about false news? We have a three-step approach when it comes to false news at Facebook. Number one, we remove content that violates our community standards. Number two, we reduce the spread of problematic content. So content that doesn't quite rise to the level of rise to the level of violations of our community standards, but is still deemed false by our independent third-party fact checkers. And the third step is to inform, because we want to make sure people know what they're reading, and to also know that when they come across false news, that it is indeed false and has been rated as such by our third-party fact checkers. Next slide. The slide after that. One more. Yeah, this is the slide that I spoke to in regards to removing, reducing, and informing. So just additionally, for you to be aware and to look out in your news feed, we now have created warning labels. That's the first phone that you see. So when someone tries to share information that has been fact-checked as being false or partially false by a third-party fact checker, there's a pop-up notice that lets the person know, hey, you're about to share false news. And what we've seen is that people, of course, don't do that anymore once they've been informed that it's false news they're about to share. Then there's notifications, what you see on the second phone. And on the third phone is also an ability to provide feedback on a post. So it allows you to let us know, hey, this is a bit of a weird story. I think Facebook, you ought to share this with your third-party fact checkers and have them have a look at it to see whether it's false. So as you can see, we rely not only on the expertise of our third-party fact-checking partners, we also very much look to you as the expert in your country as regards to what is false and what is true. And we ask you to let us know. It's quite quick, so it doesn't take a lot of your time, but it also allows our systems to improve and look for more signals in regards to what could be deemed false in the future. Next slide. So some of the things that we've noticed and learned about is the importance of not only sharing false news tips and tricks on the platform, but also making sure that people have the tips and tools readily available to stop false news on their own and to know where to go when they want to check whether a story is false or true. So we do a lot of media literacy campaigns, both online and offline, This is something where you're getting a bit of an idea. It hasn't gone live yet, but it will be going live shortly. So please look out for it on your own newsfeed as well as in your own newspapers. And we also have focused our campaign on hate speech and how to stop it based on feedback we've received from various partners, and that we needed to do more about educating people, not only of how we define hate speech, but also how it can be reported to Facebook. Lastly, because I want to leave a bit of time for questions, one more slide, please. When it comes to elections, I think one thing that we realized is really important is to help people become involved in an election. Across many of my countries, I'm originally from Ghana, for example, we have a young population who has never voted before. So we usually partner with electoral commissions to allow people to find out more relevant information about how they can get involved in their election. We share that information on the day of the election, and we also sometimes share information when there's a voter registration period. And if you would click on the post, it would allow you to go to the site of the local electoral commission to find out more. And then you can sort of say, hey, it's election day today. I'm excited. I've done my part. I've voted. You know, if you voted, you should share similar information. It's sort of the equivalent of the sticker that sometimes you would get when you go to the voting booth. But we realized that is really a way that we can help people who are already on Facebook find out useful information and know where to go when they're looking for updated election information. Next slide, please. Transparency. Very quickly, just to mention that we have done a lot of work to increase transparency across various Facebook apps, so Facebook, Instagram, because we wanted to make sure that people now better understood when there was an ad versus organic content. This means that nowadays you can find out not only who is behind a certain page, right? Have they maybe changed the name of the page recently? Which countries is the page managed from? When was it created? Information that previously wasn't available, but we wanted to make sure that people really not only understood who they were engaging with, but also who else that potential page might be talking to. So you really get more of a sense, because you see a paid by label on ads, that this is advertising, not organic content. Then you can go to the page and find out more. We have an example here, for example, from Cote d'Ivoire, where you can understand, okay, the president's page, wonderful. What kind of advertisements have they run? Who did they target with their advertisement? What are the topics? And the idea is really that we are keeping this information publicly available for anyone for up to 7 years. So you can even go back if you're a researcher, or you're just curious about the type of content that they're putting out into the community, you can go directly and search for various pages in your country. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I wanted to just sort of wrap things up by saying that if you sort of say, this is all well and good, but I have a problem with my Facebook account and I don't know who to go to. Do I need to know Balkissa? How can I reach Akua? I would say, fear not. We have developed a website that is specifically for our government and politics partners. It's a concierge service, really. You see the website at the bottom where you can go to for help. Any sort of issues you have with your page, if you want to get verified, all these sorts of questions, you can immediately go there and you have a dedicated team that is available 24/7 that can assist you. Next slide. And one more thing that I always mention when we engage or have sort of conversations such as these is that the importance really of reporting. Often, and back in the day when we still used to travel, I would ask in the audience live, please raise your hand if you've reported something to Facebook before. And to my sort of sadness, oftentimes there would be maybe 1 or 2 hands which were raised. There's encourage you that if there's one thing you remember from the presentation today, if you come across content on Facebook that you think shouldn't be there for the various reasons listed here, but of course there are also more as explained in our community standards, just click on the link, the three dots on the top right of whichever content you see. Anything can be reported, really, and report it to us. It's anonymous, so nobody will be notified except for Facebook. And then we can take a look to see, is it, for example, harassment? Is it false information? Is it terrorist activity or information? Is it nudity? And before an election, we also launch an ability to share whether it's false voting information, because that's another thing that we don't allow and have banned from Facebook. Call it voter suppression related materials. So if your election, for example, is on a Wednesday, you come across a post that says, everybody go to the polls on Thursday. That's obviously an attempt to have people not participate in their election. And we would want that content to come down. So you can report content also on the basis that it might be false in terms of date or logistics or information related to the election. You can report things on Facebook even if you do not have a Facebook account. A lot of issues you might have can be solved via our help center. So you don't have to just create a page, even if maybe you're acting for a friend or for an institution that you work for. I would direct you to our help center, and somebody will have probably posted about a similar issue as well as a resolution for your information. And last but not least, as I said before, I really want to highlight here the importance of reporting things on Facebook. If there's anything that you see that you think should not be on our page, I would urge you today to report that to us. This is an example of a campaign that we have launched across various countries in Sub-Saharan Africa as well, both online and in print media, to educate people about the importance of reporting things to us, as well as emphasizing that everything can be reported. Pages, profiles, groups, posts, videos, a whole profile, if it's violating or if it's impersonating someone, for example, can be reported. So just another reminder to kindly do your thing, do your part in ensuring that your community is safe on Facebook and report potentially problematic content to us. That now concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening. We're definitely available for questions, as my colleague Balkissa said earlier. And we also know that this would not be the last time that we engage with you. And we look forward to continued conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akua. Merci, Balkissa. On a un petit peu juste en temps, mais je vais quand même prendre des questions. Est-ce qu'on a des questions de la salle? De la salle, non. J'ai des questions, j'en ai plusieurs, je vais en prendre que deux. Hein, je le redis, on a un peu juste en temps. Il y a une première liée au contexte ivoirien et des élections. Alors, on l'a vu un moment sur les publicités. Est-ce qu'il y a des choses qui ont été mises spécifiquement en place en Côte d'Ivoire pour les élections à venir?
Akua, do you want to take this, or do you want me to go ahead? So he's asking whether we put anything specific, to protect the elections in Côte d'Ivoire, the upcoming ones.
Yes, definitely. I can start, and then I'll be happy to hand over to you. I think the importance to recognize is that for all the elections, we don't just copy and paste our approach. We start with a risk assessment, which means that we have over 17 different categories of potential risks that we track. So anything from hate speech to fake news, foreign interference, WhatsApp-related activities. We look at the situation in Côte d'Ivoire, and we, through newspaper articles, but also talking to our partners, as well as just historical context, get a sense of what are some high risks that we're dealing with when it comes to Cote d'Ivoire? Are there protests that we need to be aware of? Is there potentially hate speech that we need to action on? And based on sort of the analysis of the key risks, we then bring together the respective team with expertise in the various issues that are high risk to make sure that we address them both on and off platform. Maybe you want to add something as well, Balkissa.
Yes, thank you. Donc, comme ma collègue l'a mentionné, dans tous les, quelles que soient les élections, nous mettons en place des outils pour vraiment protéger l'intégrité de ces élections-là sur nos plateformes, mais ces outils sont adaptés au contexte que nous observons dans le pays. Dans le cas de la Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons déjà déployé et nous continuons de déployer des efforts. Entre autres, je citerai de manière vraiment spécifique le programme de vérificateurs de faits, donc de fact-checking. Nous avons en ce moment 2 fact-checkers en Côte d'Ivoire qui vérifient les informations qui sont virales, vérifier si elles sont vraies, si elles sont fausses, afin que nous puissions faire des notifications aux utilisateurs, comme cela a été déjà présenté par ma collègue. Nous avons également étendu notre programme de transparence des publicités sociales et liées aux élections également en Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, ces publicités, comme ma collègue a eu à le mentionner, seront stockées pendant 7 ans dans la bibliothèque des publicités politiques sur la plateforme Facebook. Cela permet en fait d'augmenter et d'accroître la transparence des publicités politiques sur notre plateforme. Donc, nous avons également eu à mener des recherches en relation avec les interférences. Et nous avons, en novembre, octobre de l'année dernière et même encore récemment, eu à démanteler des réseaux de pages et de groupes qui tentaient vraiment de mener des campagnes pour influencer l'opinion publique en Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, il y a vraiment plusieurs efforts que nous déployons. Mais je voudrais vraiment donner l'opportunité pour les autres questions, donc je ne vais pas m'atteler.
Alors j'en ai plein d'autres, je vais en prendre qu'une dernière. Est-ce que vous travaillez directement avec le gouvernement ivoirien? Est-ce qu'il y a une relation directe entre le gouvernement ivoirien et Facebook, ou est-ce que vous travaillez de manière complètement indépendante? Elle n'est pas facile, mais l'autre est encore plus compliquée.
Pour traduire pour ma collègue, Akua, the question is on our relationship with government, whether we have direct relationship. Do you want to take this or do you want me to take it?
I'm happy for you to take it simply because I, as the policy lead, I'm always guided by your expertise as well as requests. And so I'm in support of whatever partnerships that you as a policy lead would recommend. So over to you, definitely.
Thank you. Donc, dans le cadre de notre travail et vraiment dans le cadre de notre mission qui est de rapprocher le monde et de donner à tous la possibilité de pouvoir créer des communautés, en Côte d'Ivoire comme partout ailleurs, on travaille avec toutes les parties prenantes, que ce soit les autorités, que ce soit la société civile, que ce soit les médias, que ce soit les chercheurs, les académiciens, les forces de l'ordre. Nous collaborons avec toutes les parties prenantes. Ceci vraiment dans l'objectif de pouvoir assurer une communauté qui est en sécurité, qui est authentique, qui est également épanouie pour pouvoir s'exprimer sur notre plateforme. Donc, la réponse à la question courte, c'est qu'en Côte d'Ivoire, on collabore avec toutes les parties prenantes, y compris les autorités.
Bon, bien, merci beaucoup Balkissa. Thank you very much, Akua, for your time and your good presentation. I think we'll let you because we have another visual conference to happen now. So, merci beaucoup, Balkissa. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Au revoir.
Merci pour l'attention et au revoir.
Au revoir.
Alors, j'espère qu'elle nous a entendus. J'ai oublié de les applaudir. Alors, on rentre dans la dernière partie de la journée avec un sujet complètement différent. On va basculer sur la mobile money. avec Habib qui va animer dans quelques minutes le panel. Mais avant cela, j'aimerais qu'on accueille encore virtuellement, et pour notre keynote speaker, Madame Cathy Rosalie Joly, qui est avocat associé et docteur en droit chez Bird & Bird France. Et elle va nous expliquer dans son keynote comment le mobile money évolue dans un environnement réglementaire complexe. On en a parlé un petit peu ce matin. On avait discuté de la partie mobile money et de la partie de régulation entre des acteurs différents qui étaient les telco opérateurs et l'écosystème financier, et qu'ils avaient été obligés